Hey Petty fans, welcome to episode 15 of the Richard Petty Motorsports podcast presented by Petty's Garage.
Nobody that saw this title wants to hear from us.
Nope. So we're just going to get right into it. We've got a very special episode for you today. Eddie Wood is back with Dale Inman. So they're here together. And
two legends in the same room.
What else do we need to say? Enjoy this. Well, welcome, Dale and Eddie.
Glad to be here.
I normally would ask our guests to give their name, hometown, kind of what they do, but I feel like we don't even really need to do that for this episode. We're sitting at a table of racing royalty, legends, and good friends. Is that about right?
Well, we're certainly good friends.
Good friends. I don't know about the rest of it.
But we, where we said I was born about a quarter of a mile from here, not in no hospital, but here in Level Cross, North Carolina, and we got Eddie out of Virginia, so it's an honor to have him here.
So Eddie, this is your first time here, correct?
Yeah, I hadn't been here when Kyle came to drive for us. We bought a car from Petty, at that time it was Petty Enterprises, and I've been trying to figure out where the thing was hid at because it was hid. Kyle had hid it from
probably me,
from Dale and Lee and everybody, and I kind of got it figured out now. But yeah, that was in 1984, the end of '84, and that was probably the last time I was here. So quite a bit different. But man, I love this place. I got to come back and spend a full day looking at everything, because you can't just glance over everything. You got to just stop, because most of the stuff that's in here, I remember it, or you remember the story behind it.
You got Kyle in '84. I had him at Daytona in '79 at the age of 18 in the ARCA race, and he won it.
I remember that. I was there. I was on top of the truck when he won that race.
Yeah.
I remember that. The white car with a blue 44 on it.
Wasn't that his first start too?
That was his first race. Yeah, doing anything, and Lord, you wouldn't believe it. And Richard and Donnie was trying to help and had me so messed up and made me nervous. But Richard was so nervous for him, it was unreal. But they was running. I think he's running 192 mile an hour. And just fresh out of high school.
They were in an ARCA race.
That's insane.
Yeah. And wound up winning the thing. And Wade Thornburg worked with me forever here, and he said he won't run 125 mile an hour. And we was in our test, and he was running, and we was trying to get him on pit road, and I said, Kyle, you adjust to the speed, and when we make a pit stop, you won't be able to get these cars stopped, And so we practiced it, and I sent him out, and he run 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, brought him down pit road. He went by me running 100 mile an hour. He couldn't get stopped. So help me God, he went down the middle of the pit road, stopped, and said, "You moved." It wasn't him, it was me.
It was you.
And he ain't changed none since that either.
Yeah, I remember that. He was probably the only one ever won a race in a Dodge Magnum. Wasn't that a Magnum?
Yeah, you might be right. That was an awful car. that kind of put us out of the Dodge business.
Yeah, I remember the car.
Yeah,
Weren't very attractive cars either, were they?
No, even the day glowing blue didn't help that car. And I tell you, that color just kind of, to me, it's magic on a race car. And Richard would design the paint schemes, and I don't think he could mess it up, but it didn't help that Magnum much.
Yeah, they were pretty cars. We chased it enough. I know that for a fact.
But we was leading the 500 in that thing.
That's
and
right.
blowed a tire and took Pearson and Darrell out.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
They were. Yeah, they run first, second, third.
Which year was that?
Let's say 77.
76 was the year Pearson got it refired and won, right?
It was 78.
78.
Okay.
It's 2 years after that, because I remember when they wrecked, they had checked out those three cars. I mean, they probably about a half a lap on everybody.
We was getting ready to lap Bobby, and he won the race in Bud Moore's car.
That's right.
But he was about getting ready to lap, and he ended up winning because y'all had some issues.
But that's the way racing was back then compared to this, to what we have today. The stages and the competition yellows and all that other stuff. But that's what we had back then.
Is that the rain?
Eddie, you brought the rain with you,
My
man.
goodness.
I hear it. Wow.
Yeah, for any of the listeners at home, that sound that's rain. But hey,
Wow.
we're going to power through.
The farmers of in Randleman right now are probably pretty happy.
Yeah,
So.
I know my
bet.
father-in-law is happy for this rain.
Yeah. You got to have rain, man. You got to have it.
So how far is the drive from Stewart down here?
It's about an hour and 10 minutes.
Okay, that's
It's
not
about
too bad.
75 miles. Not that bad. I actually came through Martinsville. I had to be in Martinsville this morning. I came down 220, and that whole new road there, I've not been on that, to the airport and all that, because I know Dale told me when they came to Martinsville to the race a couple weeks ago, it took them like 45 minutes or an hour to get there. I'm like, well, no way.
Yeah.
But I see now, and but it didn't take very long to get here.
Yeah, it takes me less time to get from my house to Martinsville than it does from my house to Charlotte, which is pretty awesome.
I believe that. And I understand now. I know they always stayed when we raced at Rockingham. They always stayed at home and would come back and forth. I see now how.
But back then, we went old 220. That's through Seagrove, Bisco, and Star, and all them roads, right down through Randleman.
Yeah.
And it would be simple now if we're still racing Rockingham.
Yeah, we got behind them one time coming home because we were always going north ourselves, and we get up above Rockingham, and they just hang a right out in the middle of nowhere. So we followed them, but there was a shortcut.
Shortcut through there.
I mean, it was a big, but they knew how to get there and back, and that was. I remember that just as good as it was yesterday.
So y'all were glad that you took a chance following the Petties home from Rockingham one time.
I was, they knew we knew they went home every day, so we figured they had to know more than we did. So they did.
Yeah.
How many times did y'all cross paths either on the way to or home from the racetrack? How often were you like on the way there and your clan ends up by the Petty clan? And
probably a lot going to Riverside and Ontario.
Okay. Yeah, they wasn't many roads into where we was going. We had to cross paths, but we've. I guess we've always been friends. We wrecked coming to the Checker at Daytona in '76.
Yeah,
and got over to the next race, and
it wasn't a big deal. And I mean, the first one of the first my first trips to be able to get inside the racetrack, like on pit road, because I still wasn't old enough, but I could get in the infield, was at Bristol, and it was in about 1967, and I thought that's a big deal. Then I can go in the pits.
Yeah,
and I remember my dad told me, he said, I want you to meet somebody. He said, you got to meet these people. If you don't meet anybody else today, you got to meet these people. So we walked over to because you used to come in on turn 2 on that little ramp where everybody used to wreck their cars and toolboxes getting in and out. And y'all were pitting on the other corner coming off of 4 over there. And he walked me over there, and it was Dale and Richard and Maurice and Lee. And he introduced me to every one of them. Shook hands with Lee and Richard, and then shook hands with Chief, and he hit me in the chest and like knocked the breath out of me. And then I shook hands with Dale, and he took me to my knees.
I remember that.
and just put his thumb in that
pressure point,
pressure point, and just took me to my knees and said, "Okay, I got it." So
Dale, you haven't changed much.
Not much.
Yeah, old age has got some of it.
No, it hadn't changed much because that stuck with me till now. I mean, I remember it just like it was yesterday. I mean, it was just because I knew who they all were, but I never met anyone. I'd never really been inside because I wasn't old enough. And in those days, if you weren't 16, you couldn't go in the garage at all. And you spent, my early years of going to races was sitting in the back of a station wagon because you'd always have, your mom and dad would have a station wagon. That's where you're supposed to be. And so this time I got to go. It was in the summertime because I used to run Bristol, I think, in July, and I was out of school. Is the only reason I got to go. And but that was the first family I met. First, really, people other than people that had driven our car that I ever met.
Wow.
Ever. So that was a big deal to me.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Oh, we were talking earlier, and I was wondering, back in the day, which family would get to the track first? The Petty family or the Wood brothers?
Much difference.
Well, we ran all the races, and for
Yeah.
forever they didn't run nothing but the super speedways, and the money, the tracks that paid pretty good or something, you know. But and I think we kindly you stop every. You know, you used to have to stop by a pit pass every week. I mean, you didn't have the hard cards. And I tell people this, and y'all can listen, it ain't always been this easy.
Yeah.
And I think they kind of let us sign in, but according to where you were in the points, you know. So
Okay.
we didn't, and we'd line up and get our people in. And
That's right. They were always there probably before we were, especially on sign-in day.
yeah,
Because they had to be first in line. See, what happens, you would get to the racetrack, you know, and park your truck and usually stay in it. And then they would open the thing up at, say, 7 o'clock. And if you didn't stay there, they had a list.
yeah.
And they would tape it to sign-in building to the door or something, and you'd sign it when you got there. And that's how you're supposed to go in. But if you didn't stay there and keep an eye on it, somebody would tear that list down
Put another one up.
and put another one up. But you know, they were you know, running all the races and winning, you know, a bunch of championships. So they would always need to be there before we were, because we would be way down the list.
And then,
Gotcha, okay.
and then when you went in, you set your pits up right then. You know, you unloaded, and because a lot of the places didn't even have garages. You know, so it's certainly a different world, and we wouldn't have enough time left this week to describe the differences in what it was then compared to now, what we're trying to talk about. But it was still racing, and we had the stands full for sure. You
Yeah.
know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you know, racing's changed a lot, but from a time, for me, when they sing the anthem, say the prayer, sing the anthem, it's still the same. And then when they throw the flag, a lot of crazy stuff happens from flag to flag now, but a lot of crazy stuff happened back then too. You know, it was a different time, and you know, you didn't have the pack racing like is now, but you still had to beat, you know, every week. You know, they were our biggest competitors from the time I remember even being at the racetrack. You know, they were always the one that we had to worry about beating. But there were other cars. It was Junior's car, Bud's car, the K&K Dodge with Harry Hyde. You know, there was other cars, and but they were the ones that you had to beat.
And the same for us. When the 21 was on the entry list, we said this is there's another one we got to contend with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the record shows that Pearson and Richard run first and second to each other 63 times.
Yeah, I think it's something like that.
But that wasn't all with the Wood brothers. Some of them with Holman Moody with Pearson. You know.
Oh, the 17 car?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but most of them was with the 21 car, and you think about that record, it never comes up much. But and they've had a bunch of drivers. Do you know how many drivers y'all really had, Eddie?
I tried to make a list for this, and I couldn't.
I don't know. Lynn, my brother knows. He keeps up with numbers and stuff like that. But it's probably in the 70s of
Wow.
different ones, you know. 'Cause
Wouldn't be that many, would it?
I think it's up there pretty good.
That Lord, I wouldn't guess that many. But
sounds like too many. But then
yeah, I know it.
there's been 19 or 20 that's actually won a race. So
Oh, wow.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Golly,
yeah.
find that number.
I'll ask Lynn. He'll know.
Okay, and but we've been through some drivers here too, you know, but you know, getting back we're talking about back in the day, back when the cars were different, and they're built around safety now a lot. We probably didn't go a race, not for us, but somebody didn't have a relief driver.
Oh, wow.
And that you just get in there and hook the seatbelt and go, you know, climb out the window. And but the signal was, even before radios, you know, if you pat on your head if you wanted a driver, and you start looking for somebody, you know, and we're describing some of the stuff that happened, you know, in between then and now. But yeah, and
Wasn't there a story that Richard was tapping on his helmet and you was hunting the driver?
First race we ever went to was a convertible race at Columbia, South Carolina, a dirt race one night. And me and Richard and Red Myler went down with a convertible race car. And Fireball was there, Possum Jones, Bob Wilburn. I mean, the top of the crop in the convertibles. And that's the circuit that me and Eddie talk about a lot that's been forgot about. But at one time, it was history. That's kind of where your dad got started.
Right, it was.
And Richard was he turned 21 July the 2nd. July the 12th, we went to Columbia, South Carolina with a convertible. And they wouldn't let him run then until he was 21, and they knowed his age, so he couldn't fool them. So we got down there, and Joe Weatherly didn't have a car, but he was there, and we talked and said, if Richard gets tired, 200-lap race on dirt, will you get in for him? And Joe said, sure, and we're running along there, and I'm probably more nervous than Richard, and he goes to his head, and I go get Joe. He puts these little golf gloves on and his helmet, and Richard keeps going, and he does it again. I go get Joe ready. Coming home, I said, Richard, what the devil's wrong? You signaled you wanted a driver and didn't come in. He said, my head was itching. So I tell people, see what I had to work with. He didn't know he had a helmet on. So, but that's just some of the funny stories that happened. And we wound up running sixth that night, and I believe it was sixth, might have been fourth. I forget what it was, but it was quite a trip, And from then on, it's been on. And of course, I was in service a couple of years, from '59 to '61, so I missed that part of it. But I've been around him even when I was working with somebody else. I mean, we was good friends through going to church and our families, and Mary and Linda communicating and all that stuff. But that's about all we've ever known is racing.
Right. What was kind of the idea behind that convertible series? Is it one of those things where, like when they started the truck series, trucks were really popular in America, thought we needed something for it, or was it just a good way to serve as maybe an entry?
Yeah, the story I always have heard from my family was, now this would have been Bill France Sr., somebody got the idea, and I'm sure it was him, that they could run the convertibles and the fans could see the drivers. They could actually see them.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, and you could see inside the car so well. And at one time, the convertible series, I think it was a real, not threat, it's not the right word, but I mean, it challenged the hardtops in popularity. Because convertibles are cool. They're cool now.
Yeah.
And but that's how my dad pretty much started. Was in the mid '50s with racing convertibles, and that led to getting with Ford Motor Company. And actually, he talks about Joe Weatherly. Joe and Curtis Turner were part of the Ford factory team, which at that time was called DePaulo Engineering.
Yeah.
And this predates Holman Moody a few years. But they convinced Ford Motor Company, which is Mr. DePaulo, that they need to bring these guys on, the Wood Boys, because they had, Joe and Curtis had driven cars for my dad in modifieds and sportsmans and stuff, so they knew each other. And when my dad first started running the convertibles, he was running really well, and Curtis and Joe went into races, and so they convinced Ford to do that. And we've been with Ford Motor Company ever since. But they raced Fords when they started in 1950. But so far as working with the manufacturer like you do now, that started in the mid 50s and was due to those guys.
Wow.
But I think that's a treat to the Wood family that they've been with Ford forever, and it's still good with you.
Yeah,
very good with you.
We've just been really fortunate to have that relationship.
But maybe some of the people that's listening here, if they the first Daytona 500 at the Speedway in '59 had convertibles and hardtops.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Were they all running the same race?
See, you're not up on your history.
I'm not. No.
The Thursday's race had a convertible race and then a hardtop race run on the same, just like our they used to do. I guess I don't know what they'll do this year, but the convertible rate. I think the convertibles was something like 13 mile an hour slower than the hardtops.
Yeah, they were quite a bit slower.
But they had a convertible race, and Richard run third in it, finished third. Shorty Rollins won it.
That's right.
Who won second?
I don't remember who was second, but
I know Richard run third in a 57 Moe's convertible.
Okay, well, my dad raced that race, and because he had raced on the beach, on the sand, as well as Lee did. And
I was there on the sand the last race.
Yeah, it was
in
1958. And so when he got over there, they had the convertibles and the hardtops, and I'm sure nobody really knew what to do. You got this big, fast speedway. Well, that's how the qualifying races started, was a race for a convertible.
Well, you finished the 100. There's 100-mile races then.
That's right. It was 100-mile races. And my dad was he was in Leonard was in the Army at that time.
Okay.
And all the great crew chiefs went through a stint in the Army.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Back then. Heck, he did, and my Uncle Leonard did. Wow. But there was, tuning up to get ready to race, and another driver, I can't think for sure who it was. I think it might have been Tim Flock, kept telling my dad, you need to richen yours up because you're going to burn it down. It'd be too lean, because nobody really knew that it was all new to everyone. Mm-hmm. So he kept richening it up, which slows the car down. But, it was a threat of...
keeps it cooler, too.
It keeps it cooler. The fuel keeps it cooler. So he led that thing and was coming to the flag, coming to the checker, leading in the middle of 3 and 4, and run out of gas. And he wound up 4th.
Is that right?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
And he was mad, still mad at Tim Flock over that fuel.
Over the advice he gave him?
Yep. Till the day he died.
But
it brought up.
And then they had the hardtop race after that. I don't know which one they run first.
I think they run the convertible last because my dad started 8th, and that would make sense of how they do it.
Okay.
But Lee wound up winning the race, the 500, and I don't know where he finished third or where did he finish. I believe he finished third or fourth in the hardtop race on Thursday, but. They lined the hardtops up on the inside and the convertibles on the outside. Or
I think I've seen a picture in those blue books. I think that's right.
But and what happened to Richard was he was even good drafting in. Drafting's different now today than what it was then. So when they took off, them hardtops sucked the guts out of his motor. It just turned him too much, and we didn't last long. But Lee wound up winning the race. And like I said, the convertibles, and they've been kind of forgotten, hadn't they?
Yeah, there's not, we haven't forgotten them, but they just kind of, when they got away from them,
it kind of disappeared in history.
The history part. Now there's a lot of literature and books about them. There's a book called Rumbling Ragtops that
I got that book.
That Dale and I go through those blue books all the time. You think you remember some of these races, and a lot of them I wasn't, I was too young. I wasn't even that, but I know about them. And you just go get those books, and yep, you was right. Most of the time he's right.
Most of the time?
Again.
As usual. That usually follows you're right. It's either as usual or again.
But we took that Oldsmobile down there, and they're already running around the new racetrack at 140 mile an hour, and we're up here building a car. And the last time on the beach, you qualified. You went down they gave you a mile to get up to speed, and you went through a mile trap, and I think the speed was 119 mile an hour on the beach. And
on the sand.
That's crazy.
120 on the sand.
We gonna be off, and we went down there, and I think Lee wound up, even though he didn't qualify the first day or anything, I think he finally wound up running 142 mile an hour or something. That big Oldsmobile we showed you over there,
Yeah.
But it's just. But we had the grandstands full then, But we're talking about the convertible circuit. And Bob Wilburn, I believe he won 3 championships. Is that right in the convertible?
I think that's right.
And he was right here in Level Cross, right up here at the stoplights where his family lived, Eddie. When you leave here this evening,
I didn't know that.
if you overlook to the right, there's where he was raised.
The fire station or the gas station? Which
It'll be
side?
It'll be the left.
Oh, the left. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And it was the Wilburn family, and he was just a hot rodder around here. And if you seen him coming, you give him plenty of room on the road and everything. But he wound up winning, I think, had a factory team and everything in the 50s, 56, 57, along in there.
Well, that first 500, didn't it go flag to flag with no caution?
No cautions. And a photo finish.
And a photo finish.
And they took them 3 days to declare Lee the winner. I think they knowed it after maybe the first day, but Bill France was smart enough to get the press out of it and lingered it on. That's the word I hear, But I was there, and I went to the start-finish line where I would see it, and I know we won it, and or Lee won it, not me. But I was down there with them, and Weatherly was in the picture too. They just went over in the museum, and but Weatherly was lapped down, and he was trying to help Lee win it, running it Beauchamp and everything, and it's just what it was then.
Yeah, I remember. I've seen pictures, or I've seen a video of. Did they both go? Well, the Victory Lane used to be in the infield, like not the infield, but the travel.
Just had a gate there,
Yeah, you just they go in and hang a right about the start finish line. It seemed like did they both go drive in there?
Beauchamp went in there and they gave him
Beauchamp
the trophy and the race queen and everything was there. But talking about the beach in 1958. Bill France had enough clout then that the Thunderbirds flew over.
In 58?
Wow.
Whoa. That's crazy.
Goodness
Because
gracious.
it's still such a cool deal when that happens today.
Oh, yeah. I was in service, and when they fly over, they play the national anthem, I still enjoy it and maybe sometime get chills, and it's a big deal. But there was 4 of them in formation, just 4. But there was one that was by himself. And when he first come over, he might have been high as this ceiling here with no announcer or nothing. And you can imagine how it scared us.
Wow.
Yeah, because did they have lights or anything around the track then? I mean, he could have been as low as the ceiling and not touched anything.
Well, we was on the beach, son.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you were talking about the track. I thought you were talking about the track.
No, we was on the beach. And Lee had a modified for Friday, a convertible for Saturday, and a hardtop for Sunday down there.
Was that 3 different cars, or did you put the top on the convertible?
No, it was a different car.
Okay.
Because Lee got a factory deal with Oldsmobile in 1957 and had 3 hardtops and 2 convertibles. And wound up with Tiny Lund was part of the package, Bill Lutz. And then it got down to just Lee driving. So between here and Greensboro, there was a 36 Chevrolet sitting up there in a garage, and I kept seeing it, and Richard went up there and bought it and put an Oldsmobile motor in it and an International pickup front axle under it to have brakes, and we burned a piston in that thing because it was too lean.
Yeah, that burning a piston used to be a kind of common thing because you held them wide. You was in the throttle so long. I mean, I don't know that first year or two when I assumed they run them wide open.
They was wide open, yeah,
like they do now.
Yeah.
So.
But they.
That's just the package, right?
Yeah.
But the beach course was 2 mile down A1A,
right,
and then a sand dune, and 2 mile up the beach, and a sand dune, and back down, and it was like. Was it a 40-lap race or something, Eddie? 160 mile, I believe.
I think it's 160 miles.
Yeah.
I think it's a 40-lap race because when my dad raced there, he raced there from the early 50s until they, went to the big track. And they had he raced Sportsman's because he won the last Sportsman race on the beach. And I think
Is that right?
Yeah. I think he finished 7th in the convertible race. He didn't run the hardtop race that year, but he always ran a convertible and a Sportsman. And There we go.
Superbird.
That Superbird is running in the background.
Yep.
Yeah, we're going to pause real quick. I know everybody wants to hear that Superbird, but we also need to hear a message from our sponsors, Petty's Garage.
Welcome to Petty's Garage. Every one of our strut bars and coil covers are handmade right here in my hometown, Level Cross, North Carolina. Now, you probably know my favorite color, but we still make these things in every color you can imagine. You've got the power to make your car go and show exactly how you want. Visit Petty's-Garage.com to check out all the parts, engines, and tunings we've got to offer.
Favorite innovations over the years?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Trying to keep Richard awake, I guess.
What are some of your favorite innovations?
Um,
And we can air quote innovations if you'd like.
yeah, I didn't have any myself, but my uncle, he probably made the first aluminum jack.
Okay, that's
and the first one pump jack. You know, the jacks they used to have were just like floor jacks, and they were cast iron. I mean, they were heavy.
Yeah.
Is that the kind of jack that famous video of Junior Johnson swinging it around the car? Is that one of them big old heavy ones?
That would have been a heavy one.
That would have taken somebody out right there.
That was just a stock floor jack. It
Yeah.
wasn't nothing fancy about that.
Yeah, but it was heavy. You know, it wasn't aluminum. But kind of the story behind that is when they got to concentrating on, you know, making pit stops better. He came up and made a piston for a floor jack, you know, a small floor jack, and it was a one pump. It was like go down, up, back down.
Which is still what you see today.
It's
pretty much,
what you see today, and the car would be up. And then later on, my Uncle Delano was the jack man, and he'd been having some problems with his back, so he decided he'd make him an aluminum jack. So he made an aluminum jack, which was probably half the weight, maybe more than that, and made, you know, it had the big piston in it where it was a one pump, and that's probably one of the biggest things that, you know, he probably gave to racing. It's still there today. And the air guns, he used to polish port all the air guns and made his own sockets and just things that would pick up tiny bits of time, but you didn't really think about it till it was all put together, and then all of a sudden you got a quick pit stop.
It reminds me a lot of that scene. I know we've watched it a few times now, but we both freshened up last night on the recent documentary that came out about your family, I guess 2 years ago, was it?
Yeah.
And I think my favorite scene in that is when Leonard is talking about all the little things that they did to improve the pit stops.
Yeah.
And the, you know, they just like overlay his voice, you know, and there's all these like
equations,
Yeah.
flying by his head and all that.
Well,
It's pretty amazing.
The Wood brothers, or the Wood family, was the first ones to ever concentrate on fast pit stops, no matter who you was. I mean, I remember pitting with lug wrenches, 4-way lug wrenches.
Yeah. There's one that in our museum that was used for that, and I think this one was probably for the modifieds because they had them big, deep well, you know, wheels.
Sockets. Okay, go ahead.
And it was a deep wall socket, but the ears of it was bent back.
Yeah.
And so you could get it in there.
But that was so you could spin it too.
Right.
And on the 4-way, you held it with a tube bigger than the thing where it spun inside the tube.
Yeah.
So, and again, it ain't always been this easy.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember Leonard, you know, would take all the lug nuts and take a couple of threads out of the end of it where you would crawl. You used to cross thread them a lot. And you cross thread a stud back then, you were pretty much done.
Oh, okay.
Wasn't no like leaving a lug nut loose or nothing like that. If you had one lug that was off, you parked it. You didn't race it in those days. But he did. I remember doing the sockets. You know, they were designed to where they had like every other. It's like a 12-point socket, but then every other point was gone. And that way it didn't spin on the nut. It would catch it.
You got it on the nut a lot quicker. Yeah, we done that too. But
Yeah.
it was a Sears and Roebuck socket.
Craftsmen.
Craftsman.
They were craftsmen. That's exactly
And,
right.
Wow.
But you're talking about cutting the lug nuts back. That worked good in the pit crew races too.
Yeah, that worked really good.
I think we won it 3 times.
I think they won it 3.
But the Wood boys that was concentrating on fast pit stops in NASCAR, and they went to Indianapolis and pitted
Jim Clark.
and won the race. And I guess Leinster. Did you get to go with them?
No, I was in about the 7th grade, and the race was on Memorial Day, and in Virginia, we had to go to school that day. North Carolina didn't, and I think half the United States didn't, but I did. So I had a little transistor radio, and I had a wire run up my sleeve, and all working. Listen to the race. Yeah.
Wow.
And all my buddies was kind of covering for me so I could listen to the race, but they went up there a couple of weeks before the race because Ford Motor Company wanted to take them up there because they was had
a Ford motor in the Indy car with Jim Clark.
That's right. It's the first year of a rear engine car had won the race, and it was a Ford engine, first time Ford had ever won the race, and it was in a Lotus, which was a European car, and so they go up and the fueling system, they had these big hoses because they had these big tanks, and it was gravity fed.
Right.
Well, Leonard just worked on how you hooked them up and unhooked them, just to where it was just like click, click, and it wouldn't cross, and
But he straightened the hose out a lot too.
Straightened the hose where it would flow exactly right. He actually got inside of there was a tank, and it had a manhole, and he was small enough at that time. I still hadn't figured out how he got in it, but he got in it and made a venturi in the bottom of it, and they could dump 75 gallons of fuel in less than 20 seconds, and everybody else was taking from 45 seconds to a minute.
Yeah, because didn't the broadcasters of that race say on the broadcast that they didn't think that Jim Clark got enough fuel when he pitted?
That's right. They said there's no way that thing is full. It's no way. It's the first time this crew has ever been to Indianapolis.
Little did they know.
And I remember Leonard, my dad, talking about Colin Chapman. He was the guy that was owned Lotus, and he come down there and he said, "Is it full?" And he said, "Yes, it's full. Don't worry about it." And it was. They made two pit stops that day, and they did not change tires. Two of the biggest races that my family was ever a part of, they didn't change tires. When Tiny Lund won Daytona in 1963,
is that right?
They didn't change tires.
Is that right?
They ran all day on the same set of tires, and same at Indy.
Mm.
And the thing, and I didn't know this till say 10 years ago. They pitted 2 cars at Indy that day. They pitted Bobby Johns, who drove for y'all at some point.
Yeah, he drove our car before.
And so they pitted both cars, and they were side by side. And I asked Leonard, a few years ago, I said, "Where did you pit at? Now we race Indy."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Well, it's right there where you go out, where the name sign is." Like I was an idiot for even asking. Like it was the one that had the opening. That was that was where Jim Clark pitted, and Bobby Johns was the next pit down. And the deal was, whoever was, in front of the other guy when it come time to pit, he pitted first. He had first shot at it. And so that's the way they did it. And they stopped with Bobby, stopped him twice, and he ran the whole race with without changing tires. And a few years ago, before Bobby Johns passed, we've got this helmet that's got one of the kids that worked for us painted it. It's got all the drivers that were living at that time, which is in like 2017. And then we added all the Hall of Famers. So we sign it. They sign it. So we carried it. Lynn and I drove to Miami and got Bobby Johns to sign it. And we go in his little office, and the thing that was front and center was a Petty car.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep, was a car he drove here. He had somebody giving him a model of it.
What car was that, Dale?
It was I was in service, but they had 3 cars over at Charlotte that day. And they run, it was 1960, and Richard and Lee both at different times blowed a tire coming off 4 and slid across the infield. And they disqualified both of them after the race. And I think Bobby might have run third. Maybe they run third, fourth, and fifth in the race and disqualified Lee and Richard for spinning across the infield and coming into pits with a blowed tire. And they didn't disqualify him till after the race. You know,
Yeah.
they let him run the whole.
Because he had that model, and he had a model of the Lotus. See, Jimmy Clark's
Where did he
Lotus-
finish?
7th.
Is that right?
Yep, he finished 7th, and his number was 83. Well, Jim Clark's number was 82, and if you look up Lotus Indy, you'll see the 82. But a lot of people don't know about the 83, but he did. It was all over that office, and he had little models of it, and had newspaper clippings, and
Wow.
you know,
Yeah.
it was really cool. And I didn't know him; I'd never met him, you know, from the old days. And it was really cool.
Did you ever meet his dad, Bobby's dad,
I remember his dad,
Shorty John?
Shorty Johns.
I'm gonna tell one on him at Daytona. They was down. It must have been about 1963. We're down there, and they had 2 Pontiacs from somewhere in Tennessee. I don't know who drove them, but there's both gold. I think one of them was 83, and the other was 84 or something, that number. And Shorty was clocking the other Pontiacs because they had a Pontiac, and he was funny anyway. And he had a stopwatch, and he got on the 83, and about a half lap later, the 84 come off by, and he got off on him, and he run twice as fast as everybody. And he was confused for a while there. You know, we all got a big laugh out of that. I mean, I hope you get the joke, but he was funny to start with. Now, Shorty Johns was, you know, he was. That was Bobby's daddy.
Yeah, I remember him. I don't know that I ever met him, but you're talking about those stopwatches. You know, there used to be, you'd have 2 watches, and you'd have a little rubber thing where you could click them, you know, so you could keep up with each lap. And we were at Riverside. In 80, Kyle was fixing to come to work for us, so it had been at the end, the last race of 84. And Bobby Rahal was driving our car. He was hooked up with 7-Eleven at that time. And Bobby had never driven a stock car. And we just had unloaded and rolled out there the first time, and he was just kind of warming up. You probably won't remember this, but he wasn't really running hard, but you know, he's just getting new to the track because he had first time in a stock car. Well, it was 3 seconds off, and these were 3-second watches, like 1, 2, 3. And he come running down over to where we were, and said, "How'd y'all run that fast?" And it was like whatever they were running, it was probably half a second quicker than what Richard was running or whoever, you know, was out there at the time. But it was actually 3 seconds off. And he was tore out of frame. But then I showed him my watch. I said, "It's 3 seconds off. I got it now."
But they had 2 different style watches. One of them was a single lap sweep, and one of them was a 3-second sweep.
Yeah, one was 1 second, and one was 3.
Yeah,
that's right.
And Bob Wilburn was driving for us, I believe, at Charlotte, and Lee was using a 3-second watch and thinking it was a second watch. And Bob Wilburn says, "I can't believe I'm this much off." We finally got that straightened out, but
it was easy to do because you didn't have it.
Yeah.
Once they went by, you clicked your watch, it was over. You know, there wasn't. I mean, you used to run around all over the garage. Did you get so-and-so? Did you get Richard that lap? Because there wasn't a record of every lap like it is now.
Wow.
But we've been to Daytona, and I'm sure they have, and we were fast and didn't want people to know how fast we were. Me and Richard had a different place on the racetrack from the start-finish line to peak our lap out.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because most time you use the start-finish line, but
We did.
Y'all done that.
Leonard did that too. 'Cause they would, like he said, everybody's sitting on pit road, and you didn't really get up on top of your haulers then because they weren't haulers. You know, you had a cab over with a ramp on it most of the time. So most people were clocking from pit road, just sitting on pit road. That was what you just sit there. Mm-hmm. And I remember Leonard used to do that. You know, they would have it like going into 3.
We had it coming off of 4 on the Union 76
on
ball.
that ball. Yeah. Yeah.
He wouldn't come by the start-finish line fast as he did that pace, and I was the one with the stopwatch that knew where we was going to do it at.
So if the folks on pit road were trying to get your time or get y'all's time, it'd probably be different than what you're getting, right?
Oh yeah, we didn't want people to know how fast we actually could run qualifying or how fast the car was or anything like that.
Yeah, you didn't want anyone to know back then because you could get something changed.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
right there.
Just like if we was out practicing, and of course they don't have practice today, and in today's world. But a lot of times we'd be practicing and run somebody down and not pass him because we didn't want them to come in and work on their car.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's all kind of. I'm sure they got.
I love that stuff.
They.
So cool.
I know Leonard and Eddie's got stories that they could tell forever, and we have too.
Yeah,
so,
it's funny when Kyle came to drive for us, and this is kind of off subject, but we were sitting at my mom's lunch table because he used to come up and he built his own seats and stuff, and he'd come to the shop, about once a week, and he was just like family. So we'd go home to eat lunch, and we had sayings at the like. I remember Kyle saying this, like if you're sitting there with your drink and you wanted ice, you'd hit your glass up and down, tap the table. And that meant you didn't say it. That meant your mom knew to go get ice, or do that, and you wanted a drink. And it was the same at our house. There's so many things.
About like patting your head if you want to drive her.
Right? all that's the same. There's so many similarities in the two families that had nothing to do with racing. But you were racing
family
people.
traditions.
It was just traditions, and it was so much the same. It was just amazing. And we all like Spam. I mean, we love Spam to this day. Every time I open a can of Spam, I send a picture to Kyle, or he does. It's just the way life was. And anything you can do that you used to do is big to me. Just doing things that. Just like walking around in here today, I'm seeing the other side of stuff that we were part of, like races they won that we didn't. And then you go to our place and you see races we won, they didn't. And it's just really cool. I mean, you kind of have to be me to understand it, I guess, or my brother or Leonard. But it's just so many things are exactly alike. It's just on the other side.
Yeah.
We're kind of the red side and they're the blue side.
Yeah.
If you telling another story, we were at Talladega, and the start-finish line is down below the tri-oval.
Yeah.
You know where it's at, and we was both pitting way down the pit road. We was pitting, I think, in the first pit, and y'all was in the second pit. And when they come by us, we didn't know who won the race. And quick as Richard went by the start-finish line, he said, we beat them. And they had a bunch of people, and we had a bunch of people, and no disrespect to nobody. No. Maurice said, we finally beat them SOBs. But they beat us too, but Maurice, he was on top of his game when it come to scuffling and fighting. And we got in a fight at Islip, New York one night, and I made sure we was going to go to jail in New York with the Allisons and tell a story on Bobby Allison. Richard and Bobby had some pretty good run-ins, and we had a pretty good scuffle up at Islip one night, and it went on. And we was over at Charlotte when they had the old garage, and Donnie come up to me, and he said, Dale, we got to get Bobby and Rich together and get them to talking or do something. I said, Donnie, let me tell you something. I said, if Richard was coming around the track this way, which is the wrong way, I was facing it, and Bobby coming around the right way and they hit head on, I'd say it's Bobby's fault. So help me God, he turned around and walked off and went and told Bobby. But it's just the way it was, and we're the best friends with Bobby now that you could ever be,
Right.
It's unreal that things that has happened, And I'd plan on going to the Benny Parson things, which was last Thursday, I guess. And Mary had a brother to pass away, and I didn't get to go because I wanted to go for the deal, but I wanted to be sure and see Bobby and Donnie and whoever might show up. So that's where we stand now, and we've been competitive with them forever, you know.
Yeah, you talk about being forever. Now, in the 70s, when Lynn and I first, I started going a little bit in the late 60s when Cale was driving our car, but I had a shirt, I had a uniform, so I thought I was cool, and because I lived my whole childhood wanting to be like Delano and Leonard and my dad and all them with a crew uniform. That was a big deal to me, so I finally got that. But then we get on into the 70s, and I just got out of college, and Lynn was graduating, so we were full-time on the road. And that was kind of the beginning of the Pearson-Petty, really the Pearson-Petty thing, in the 70s. And if we broke, we didn't run all the races, so it wasn't really important to us to finish the race. If we had a little problem, we just loaded up. So when we would break or something happen, Lynn and I both would go and stand in their pit. Now, we didn't stand up against a wall. I mean, we would go up there and maybe say something to Dale or
Wade or
Maurice,
yeah.
Barry Dotson was there, and all those. We knew them all, really well, and but we would stand in their pits till the race was over.
I've told Eddie this, but we were at the Hall of Fame after. Me and Glenn went in the Hall of Fame the same year, which was the third year, as his dad.
Mm-hmm.
And Leonard went in what year?
The next year.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah.
Which would have been the fourth year. And we was over there one night after this, and his mother come up to me and said, "Why do my boys like you so much?" And it kind of caught me off guard, and I just laughed with her. But tell him about Glenn not going to one of the Hall of Fames.
Yeah. As my dad got older, he began to get worried about. He's always worried about falling, and he didn't really like to be in a crowd. As he got older, and he wasn't going to. This is before COVID and all the stuff going on, but they would always have these autograph sessions at the hall, and it would be the day of the actual induction most of the time. But he wasn't going. He said, "I'm just not going to go. I'm afraid. I'm afraid I'll pass out, get sick, fall down, something." And I told Dale about it, and I said, "Dad's not going." He said, "Well, you tell him that I'll look after him." And Richard and
I said, "If he falls, I'll fall."
Yeah, it said, "If he falls, we'll all fall." And I went back and told him. I said, Dale said if you'd go, that he'd stand beside of you, sit beside of you, stay right there with you. He said, "Okay, I'll go." And he went.
I bet he called me back. It wasn't 2 minutes, was it? And me and Richard both.
Yeah.
Of course, he didn't have no trouble, but and Richard was with it too. And of course, when y'all won the race with
Trevor, yeah, we were. We did a deal of swapping points and stuff around that year, and so when the race was over after Trevor won it, I was walking around on pit road. I didn't know which way to go. I was completely out of it. And Richard walks up and he said, "Where's your dad?" And I said, "It's right over there." And he was just kind of milling around on the hot side of pit road. And he said, "Okay, I'm going to go get him, and I'm going to take him to Victory Lane." And okay. So he went over and got him, put his arm around him, and they started out. And I said, "I'm going to watch this." Yeah. So I walked in behind them, and that was a big deal.
Yeah.
So,
but Glenn didn't know where winter circle. I mean, the pit road winter circle was.
No, he didn't know, and he wasn't going. He just wasn't that big. Just wasn't going to go because he didn't know where it was. And we were pitting just above it, like on the turn 4 side. So we had to walk down pit road a little ways, and I walked behind them just to watch it. Yeah. And I'm thinking, man, I hope somebody's taking a picture of this. Yeah. And they did. Yeah. They got video of it. And as we turned the corner, there was Kyle.
Oh, wow.
Oh, man.
And I lost it.
Yeah.
Oh,
but
man.
we
they weren't going to miss that, right?
But when y'all went down there, y'all were guaranteed on one of our spots.
Yeah, because we had to. Otherwise, we would have had to make the race. But
Which
we
you
were
probably did, but this guaranteed that you was
Yeah.
going to be in somehow. And I was I said, why is Richard trying to get some publicity? But since, you know, but they was guaranteed a spot through our stuff, you know. I believe I'll go, and then you can work on him. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
perfect.
If you
Yeah.
want to roll out,
I
that's
got to do something with Jody, and she'll.
And ladies and gentlemen, Dale Inman is out.
I got to do another call in with Jody,
Thanks, Dale.
but I enjoyed
Appreciate
it.
it. Yeah, absolutely.
So you're gonna leave me with it.
Don't cut me up too bad. But his mother walked up and said, "Why do my brothers always like you so much?" Man, I don't know. I don't know what it's done. But we.
All right, Petty fans, there you have it. The Eddie Wood Dale Inman special episode.
It doesn't feel real. Doesn't feel real at all.
I mean, what a conversation, right?
Yeah, to be a fly on the wall, that was what it was like. It was to be a fly on the wall. You know, Dale Inman, you know, I thought he was talking about the racetrack. He was talking about the beach, and he sunned me, and that was cool because I got sunned by Dale Inman.
Well, I had that happen
awesome.
to me in the first time we had Dale on, so now we're even.
Oh, man, that dude is awesome. I love Dale.
Yeah, and you all got to be kind of a fly on the wall as well.
Yeah.
After listening to this episode, so.
We had questions, but then it just kind of turned into what podcasts are, what they are, and they just kind of. It was just so cool.
It was one of the easiest ones for me because I really didn't even need to talk much.
There were a couple times.
Back,
Yeah.
let them go. I mean, the content is priceless.
Yeah, there were a couple times me and Bradley were sitting, you know, kind of in a weird spot where we don't normally sit, and we just kept like kind of looking at each other every now and then just kind of looking. It was awesome. I mean, it's definitely one of those. I've got so much work this week. It's kind of unbelievable. It's going to be overwhelming come Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but oh man, once it's all completed and done, whoa, it's gonna be great. Oh man, it's gonna be wicked. I cannot wait.
Yeah. So thanks everybody for listening. Thanks again to Eddie Wood for coming down. We were able to knock both these last two episodes out.
And he's already trying to get down here again ASAP.
Oh, he wants to bring the whole family. It's you know.
I don't need a microphone for that. I'm just going to be over there, make sure everything's recording, make sure we got plenty of memory card space.
Yeah, we need to get Leonard. You know, Eddie was nice enough on his episode to talk about the engine that Leonard put together during COVID, the half scale. But, you know, we're going to have to get Leonard on to really tell us how he did it himself. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah,
among
that'd be
other
pretty
things.
sweet. Yeah, and there's a flyer, too, that we're buzzing around all day. Couldn't find them, couldn't kill them. But we're going to make sure they're gone by the next time we have another podcast.
For sure. So not much more to say other than you know, hope you guys enjoyed the Eddie and Dale special.
Yeah,
we certainly did. It was surreal to have them here in the same room.
Yeah.
And that's really all we can say about it. So, you know, thank you for watching us on YouTube or listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Again, if you have a commute to work or you're going on a road trip and you just want to listen, you know, find us on Apple Podcasts, find us on Spotify. Doesn't really matter to us which one you like, whichever you prefer, but give it a listen. Tell your friends about us, or you can watch these on YouTube to really get a sense of how the conversation is going and to see our beautiful faces.
Beautiful faces.
So,
and all of our cool props, like your Virginia Tech Wood Brothers car there. That's from the Bradley Sisson collection, by the way.
That's right.
This is not from the museum.
Nope.
This is from your office at home.
That's correct. So is this. But I'll just bring in. We'll have a diecast of the week for our.
We could
for our podcast.
I don't know where my diecast collection is. I don't really have much of a collection. It was more like 20, and I would just race them in circles when I was a kid. They're beat all though.
That's okay. I can hold us up for a while. Don't worry.
Yeah, you can.
So, and if I run out, we've got them all in the museum here.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Anyways, and this is probably the point where folks stop listening. But again, thank you all for listening, supporting us. Can't do without you. So
keep commenting. What was his name? Said I look like Russ Wheeler off of Days of Thunder.
That's our friend Jim Boyle.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Jim. I appreciate it. Okay, so growing up, people have already tuned out, so we might as well just keep talking. So I had
we found another gear.
All right, so when I was growing up, I liked The only movies I had were Toy Story, Days of Thunder, and Twister. Well, Days of Thunder and Twister, who's the antagonist? Whatever that dude's name is. But you know what? If Jim, you think I look like him, I'll take it because he's a Hollywood actor.
And on that note, thanks again for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening and commenting, Jim.
Bye.